Let me start with you, Felix Kaihura Safari. DRC, M23, at the beginning of this week, they announced a ceasefire, announced that they're stopping with Goma, and that was it. But by 2 days later, they're moving on, and I think they've captured another town. So what's happening there now?
Maybe, Oscar, something you need to know about the M23 is that certainly someone who was just captured, someone who was previously entered Goma, chased out within a week, you do not expect them to, after retaking it, into 2012, they were in Goma already, and the international community with the MONUSCO requested them, I think they promised them that we are going to sort out your issues. They moved out. That was unconditionally. This time round, it was a ragtag force of about remnants of the CNDP that time. I think that's why you see they are called the M23. March 23rd of 2009, they had an agreement, I think, with DRC government, which was breached. So on that day, they sat down, coming from the other organization led by Laurent Kunda, then later on Bosco the Terminator and Taganda. They later on became M23 under Sultan Machenga and the bishop who was leading them politically. It was purely not Banyamulenge. By the way, it's being unreasonably thought that it's a Banyamulenge organization. M23 is so different from the Tutsis. The Tutsis in North Kivu, then the Tutsis in South Kivu around Mulenje, the ones in Fizi and Minembwe. But currently, the ones fighting, actually, I was shocked, the current mayor, the newly appointed leader of Goma, or the governor, is actually a Hutu called Bahati. And his brother, a general, is also a Hutu leading the operations in South Kivu, where they declared that they may not proceed. Obviously, it was foolhardy for anyone to believe that they can actually not proceed after realizing they have now acquired Nanga as their leader. Nanga is not a Mushi, is not a Munyarwanda, is not a Munyamurenje. Therefore, they have now, I think, acquired more. You must appreciate that in Congo, every village has a chiefdom, and this chiefdom has different people who are actually either have their own set of a defense mechanism, whereby not only M23 actually can choose the security of the people around that place. So getting Nanga on board meant that they are getting the other community that is Chinyarwanda speaking on their board. And going forward after Seke, I think they are now moving towards South Kivu. When you look at South Kivu, the Banyarwandas in South Kivu, the Banyamulenges initially were not supporting M23, by the way. And they are not M23 because they believe these are Tutsis and Hutus of North Kivu. They are very different people from the ones around the Fizi and Minembwe. The ones in Fizi and Minembwe don't support M23. I can tell you that there is even a rebel group in that area, led by one called Kanoma Makanika. He leads a very different, unique group that is even opposed. And actually, those Banyarwandas believe that group is Uganda. They think that it came from around. They don't support it. They are not aligned to the ones that are aligned to the Rwandan thinking, or probably. So that's difference. They won't stop today.
Felix Kaihura Safari, I was going to interrupt you earlier and say we've done a lot of a history on how this conflict, and I was looking for an update. But now the manner in which you have presented has made me allow you to continue. So basically what you seem to be implying is that Rwanda has no hand in this thing.
By the way, maybe you should appreciate when you look at the history of their coming and going, initially what you have right now, people like Machenga had been earlier on working, I think, with... Right now, have you seen Machenga talking in the M23 currently?
Who is Machenga?
Machenga, Sultan has been known as the leader of the M23, the military commander. He's not talking for quite some time. Have you seen him anywhere? You are seeing the likes of William Ngoma. It's called Machenga. I think that's how they pronounce it. But even Makenga, in their own pronunciation, Machenga. Yes. And Machenga is from Rushuru, where Rushuru is next to Kanungu. So when you look at the ones like Makanika has no single relationship, even does not support the M23. Down there is, you saw even entering Goma, the only resistance they received was from Burundi. It did not come from others. Why? In South Kivu, which borders Burundi, the Burundis have more interests because they have more rebel groups in Burundi that are based around that same place. And at the same time, even Rwanda itself, their own rebel, the ones they claim the rebels of Rwanda, the FDR, are based in North Kivu. They are not in the south. Going down to south where Bukavu is found, the capital is found of South Kivu, you are going, the only resistance they are going to receive, or they are receiving already, is Burundi forces, which they say Rwanda also supports. I don't know, Red Tabara rebels. You know, Red Tabara rebels are the rebels that want power in Burundi. So they are also engaging the Red Tabara rebels.
Felix,
they are the only resisting kind of people they have. So Rwanda, I don't know, because I'm not a Rwandan.
Yeah, but I think you've also been watching videos. You have been watching videos of interviews with President Kagame. You are answering exactly the same way. Here now, let's go for a yes or no.
Yes.
Do you believe Rwanda is behind the conflict in DRC, as the president of DRC believes?
He can answer like President Kagame. I don't know.
Maybe I can pass it on to... let me pass that. Let me give it to... Looks like everyone has an answer in their own way. So how do you pass my senior Angelo to do that?
You have answered everything.
And I wanted to give you why I believe...
As I told you, we know a lot of history because we've been educated on this show by many people. But I let you go on because I looked at the angle you were taking.
President Kagame has openly, President Kagame has openly said he supports M23.
Hey.
But yes, he has said it. But I want you to understand this. He has said he believes in their cause. If someone says I believe in your cause,
he believes in their cause,
then he's supporting you. But yes, he has said he believes in their cause. What I don't know is...
Felix, let me try just a final one. Do you think Rwanda is there or not? You're a legal researcher. Yes or no?
Of course, the Rwandan feeling is that the Banyarwanda is in Rwanda. Are you asking whether, Oscar, whether the Rwandan army is in Congo or not?
The UN says there are 4,000 troops from Rwanda that are executing this war.
No, that one is totally impossible. You can't have the other forces there. And
finally, we've got a no.
Yeah.
So
if it is support, I know it does. I believe it does. But one of the forces there is really
support, but no forces there. Angelo, you are next on microphone. As I said, Abdul.
What is the question? Because it's
Angelo.
Complicated.
Yes.
On the BBC speaking English.
Yes. No, but what I said on the BBC is that obviously Rwanda is there, their interests are there. One thing I like about Paul Kagame is that he can be brutally honest. We've interviewed him in the past. I remember I came to this realization. We had an interview with him around 2004, and Andrew asked him at the time, Andrew Mwenda asked him, again, there was a lot of furore about a campaign as similar to this one, that wanted to claim that there was a counter-genocide, that, you know, during the events in 1994, perhaps even more people from the other side were killed, and that the genocide had been precipitated by the death of President Habyarimana, which was caused allegedly by a missile fired possibly by RPF forces. That was the narrative. So the question was put to him, Oscar, you know, is it true that, you know, you shot down Habyarimana's plane? And Kagame responded by saying, look, we were in a war, and in a war people die, but also Habyarimana, if he had a chance, he wanted to kill me too. That's the reality of the situation. So I think no. He basically saying that. Basically he's saying that, you know, yes, these things do happen. But I have been watching his interviews, and I can say two things about it. One is obviously Rwanda is under extreme pressure. You can see from the demeanor of the president. If you've been covering him, you can just tell, you know, that is, and the pressure is coming from, you know, questions like this: is Rwanda in DRC? And the answer that I took from his interviews is like, yes, he says anywhere where Rwanda's interests are, Rwanda is involved. That's what he said. Mm-hmm.
But what's happening on the ground right now?
You know, I have a friend who's in Goma right now. One of the stories that was being focused on was the alleged death of hundreds of inmates in a prison, and the mass rape of women who were in it's a prison like Luzira, had a male wing and a female wing. So actually it turns out it may not even be the case. He says that that when M23 were entering there, male is under heavy gunfire. We all know that that the male inmates broke loose, were vandalizing the facility, and they torched the buildings and fled. But the female prison remained locked, and fire spread across. So I like to rely on Ugandan sources, a Ugandan source. So he says that one survivor told them that only 7 of the 200 female inmates, some of them with children, survived. So I mean, you have, you know, situations like that are heartbreaking. But in the form of an update, my sense, so I was told that Bukavu is essentially encircled. I know there's a summit happening today. My impression is because precisely that the territory that M23 now controls, which is about two times the size of Rwanda, slightly more now, puts them in a strong position to make the kind of demands they've made before. And at the summit today, I think the main issue will be whether or not they can retain that territory, and then proceed along some kind of political conversation, which from the Rwandan side would be Congolese focused, and not related to some of the problems that Rwanda, Uganda have with and Burundi have with rebel groups that are based there.
Honorable Ssemujju, what's happening?
Ask me the same question.
What's happening in Goma right now? And you're a member of Parliament of Uganda. Can you confirm fully that this time round our hands are clean?
You see, Oscar, the rebels that took over Syria benefited from the war on Gaza because the America was involved. They had bombed the Hezbollah. There was no support going to Bashar al-Assad at the time they did because of the war in the area.
And President Putin has also been busy.
He is also busy with Ukraine. You need to understand, Oscar, there is something that Uganda is not saying. The resurgence of M23 coincided with the construction of roads in Congo, with Uganda expanding its influence of sphere, physically present, fighting ADF. Of course, last time when they went to fight ADF, we ended up being accused of rape, of plundering, and we are now each financial year paying $65 million. The total that will pay is about 325, about 1.2 trillion. So when you speak to the Ugandan soldiers privately, first at that time that M23 was resuming the fighting, I had been told by senior UPDF officers that Rwanda was supporting ADF. That they will not say publicly. So these things that are in Rwanda, in Congo now, you need to understand them from that context. And going back to 1998, when Uganda and Rwanda were fighting inside Congo, they went together, but they started fighting twice, resulting into the death of many UPDF soldiers, around 600. So this time around, and that's why the spokespersons of Kagame and Rwanda, you will hear them, their accusation against Tshisekedi is that he allowed Burundi, he allowed Uganda, but he's not allowing Rwanda. You need to mark that point. He has allowed Burundi to operate there, he has allowed Uganda, he's not allowing us. So this M23, Uganda morally supports them, but they are not the ones who have activated them. They are activated by Rwanda because Rwanda has a interest in Rwanda, in Congo. They usually use the presence of FDR. Uganda and Rwanda share many things in common. We have people here, the war in Rwanda ended 39 years ago, but you still have veterans of 12 years. You will see them demanding to be paid. So Rwanda, the 1994 genocide is almost 30 years ago. So you can no longer have the same FDR in Congo. You have other people who may not even have participated in your war in 1994, but they also have legitimate interests like you had when you were in Uganda. So I wanted you to pick it from there, that the reason Uganda is not there because Uganda was already there. So you need to understand, that's how we went and started fighting with Rwanda. So both of us are interested in the economy of Eastern DRC. We are both receiving gold that is trafficked through our territory. I have said this and I want to repeat. We now earn about $3 billion from that gold trafficked from, and it is the one stabilizing the shilling in Uganda, not the microeconomic policy of Bank of Uganda and Ministry of Finance. Our shilling is a bit stable because
Moses Beruhanga has told you repeatedly that it is not trafficked, it is refined in Uganda, it is good trade.
What they do to it, I don't care, but they cannot sell it themselves directly to the international market. There are sanctions. So we are the ones who are selling on their behalf. And Rwanda is doing the same thing. So therefore, this what people may think it is Rwanda. UPDF now is on forward defensive. You need to know why they are in that posture.
Yusuf. Soon to be professor. What's going on in DRC?
Yes, sir.
And no, it's not yet on a yes or no. and the plight of people are talking. Felix here started with the history and so on, but the suffering. Angela has touched a bit of it there. It must be chaos and people living a miserable life, as these leaders in different offices around the world are planning their thing, according to Honorable Ssemujju.
Oscar, there's a very viral clip that is shared on social media, and in that clip, President Paul Kagame makes some interesting confessions. He says Congolese minerals go through Kigali, and they go to the final destinations. And he says when these minerals are going through Kigali, he's unable to stop them, which means he gives them safe passage to continue to their final destinations. And then he says if he dared try to stop them from being trafficked through Kigali, there'll be more accusations of him stealing Congolese resources. This is Paul Kagame telling us. You know, he leaves himself open to either, I think he wants us to see him as a victim, that he's a victim of big thieves who are stealing Congolese resources, but at the same time are accusing him of doing the same. But then he leaves us open to imagining that, you see, you can't be giving these resources safe passage through your country and you're not accomplice to the theft of these resources, right? And that's a core component, because the government in Kinshasa has accused many times, I think not just Rwanda but all of us, Uganda, Kenya, of being interested in stealing Congolese resources. And I think at the context that Ssemujju gave us is very important, that this is the single conflict in the African continent where you see all the big players strongly voicing their interests and strongly conflicting against each other. So you have Angola, you have South Africa, you have Mozambique, you have us, you have Rwanda, you have Burundi. All of us are looking at this space called DRC for a stake in their resources, right? So there is a seemingly genuine conversation when the government in Kigali claims they need to stop the anti-Tutsi genocide in Congo, and then some just said, we have many things in common with Rwanda, but they have FDLR. Uganda has ADF, they have FDLR. So when Uganda wants to enter Congo to steal some resources, they say there's ADF. And when Rwanda wants to enter Congo, they say we have all these wonderful excuses that take us into Congo. So is South Africa, so is Angola. But Oscar, in my book, I write about Congo in one of the sections, and I'm interested in the big pictures of things. There's a guy called Dan Gatler. Dan Gatler is an Israeli diamond magnate. He owns 90% of Congolese diamond mines, maybe 100%. But you need to understand the story, how he earned access to all these major diamond mines.
Or the ownership.
The ownership. So the story is 2002, when the old Kabila was being threatened by forces. So the old Kabila sought alliance from a businessman called Dan Gatler, who promised him so many things, among others including weapons. So this is a private businessman who promises to give a government arms, and he actually delivers on his promise. Now, at the same time, Rwanda was in conflict with the young Kabila, and Dan Gatler promised support, working with the Israeli government. So as we look at this conflict, sucking in Rwanda, Uganda, and all these others, we need to often put in the picture these big thieves who have conscripted all our small men. Museveni is conscripted, Rwanda is conscripted. So the region has a bunch of merchants. They go to Congo not really to benefit themselves, but to steal for the big ones. You see, so the discussion we have on this conflict is often incomplete when we don't integrate the interests of these big players. In fact, when you look at Congolese media, Dan Gatler is called the god of Congo. He's the god of Congo. You see,
G.O.D.
Yes. Look at a man. He's a private businessman. But this is a man I was thinking somebody was going to go there when he started with the conflict in Gaza, in Syria. This is a man who, for the last 2 decades, has directly had conversation with the president of the U.S. over his alleged corruption in DRC. Like a private businessman being directly sanctioned by successful president of the United States. So George Bush sanctioned him to stop mining, George Bush Jr. And when young Obama came to office, he somehow found a loophole to allow him to continue mining Congolese resources. Joseph Biden had involvement with this man still, so that he continues mining Congolese resources. So our conversation in this conflict is incomplete if we don't see Museveni, Paul Kagame, South Africa, Ramaphosa as middlemen. You see, when someone is building roads in Congo, he's not building these roads for us, or even for himself. You see, so this conversion is often incomplete, Oscar. And I tend to argue that when you look at our colonial period, we only had a man called King Leopold who had DRC as his own personal estate. We have similar men who are absent in our conversation, men such as Dan Gatla. We need to foreground them because they're the men employing our small men here, PK, U-Museveni and others.
You know, I was saying to Abdul, when you are on a show and you have Ssemujju on one side and Yusuf on one side, the conspiracy theories you are going to go through.
No, Oscar, it's not conspiracy. This is well documented. BBC did a full report. The stuff about Dan Gatla is a full report done by the BBC. In fact, BBC would accuse you of plagiarizing their story without acknowledging them. This is a full report by the BBC.
and Josephine Barra has sent me a message saying today is the first time so far Ssemujju has not said the name Museveni. But it is early days.
Maybe started here in Capital Ganga late.
He didn't hear. Okay. and as I told you, Honorable Ssemujju, Moses Biaruhanga has always saying the gold Uganda is refining is mainly coming from Tanzania, Ghana, Mozambique, and Burkina Faso. Uganda, jointly with DRC, worked on the roads in eastern DRC to promote trade. In 2024, Uganda exported to DRC goods worth $400 million, and that trade is growing. So, Abdul, you do you know if there are troops, as Ssemujju has said? Felix here told us that
Uganda is there officially.
No, Rwanda troops. And the president, as you were saying, for him, he doesn't know. For you, do you know?
Maybe I don't want to use the word, but I think they do. And there is no contradiction about this.
You think they do?
Yeah, they do. You see, first of all, you need to have watched the footage of the summit in Nairobi. The anger with which President Kagame was speaking actually never referred to President Tshisekedi as President Tshisekedi. We're just saying this Tshisekedi. And all this is not about the Tutsi movement and so on. It's about real direct interest. Does Uganda have interest in Congo? Yes, it does. What interest? Business. Does Rwanda have interest in Congo? Yes, it does. What business? Two. Both the Rwandan speaking people in Congo, but also business. Does South Africa have interest in Congo? Yes. What interest? Business. Does Angola have interest? Yes. What interest? Business. Does the Western world Dr. Serunkuma is talking about have interest? Yes. What interest? Business. Is there a power vacuum in Eastern Congo? Yes, because Kinshasa is weak. Actually, there is literally no government in Eastern Congo. You have just, smaller territories controlled by different warlords, and everybody going in there is all about wealth. The only country which has more than wealthy interest is Rwanda. Rwanda has both too. But publicly they will talk about the other interests because it seems to be legitimate. And actually it is true. However, they don't talk, none of them will talk about the wealth. And the wars all over the world are fought for two reasons: power and wealth. Now there is no power in that place. Every territory is controlled by a different group and a small airfield where some aircrafts come in, pick what they can and fly out. Then you've got us who have no capacity to put an airfield there, but we can create some road. Then M23 says, no, this road maybe it could be more useful for us, capture that territory such that in case people want to access near Bunagana, then it has to be, it's just utter confusion, a cocktail of confusion. But all, it's like this village story when two guys, you know, committing adultery come and start fighting in a man's bedroom because of a woman. That's what is there in Congo. So you can have the researchers, you know, this is like this is the history. We've gone through that. We all know, and the whole world knows. But Oscar, in this era, there is no way you have troops moving across the border without the world knowing. It's not possible. It's certainly not possible. So I don't think it's being clever but not fool when somebody says that, you know, they were not there. Really, everybody knows it's there. So but will they accept that they are there? Maybe not. Why? Because of the international pressures will come in, and the big boys who are also coming in also have the same problem. And Congo is really suffered. It's going to continue suffering like that for a long time until those minerals are exhausted. Then you'll have a honest conversation. As long as those minerals are still as they are, you'll not have a honest conversation. And now you have a little bit of a big political problem, because you are pitting now East African community against SADC. And the SADC may have a consolidated interest in the countries of SADC, but those of East Africans don't. I don't think Kampala and Kigali will sit and say, how do we go and loot? Or how do we protect our interests? It will be very difficult. But I see Pretoria talking to Rwanda, not Rwanda, to Rwanda, and say, how do we handle this? Angola, how do we handle this? And then, or to Harare, Zimbabwe, say, how do we handle this? And they can come with a unified position. So in all this, what will happen? Poor women who are in the prisons dying of acid, because, you know, the ordinary Congolese people, you know, they are two big elephants fighting on the grass are the ordinary people in that place. They are dying, and nobody wants that place to develop. They want it as it is now, because that's the only way they can continue, you know, extracting. And maybe nobody wants even a strong Kinshasa government. They're not going to help that Kinshasa government to have control over its territory. They will not do that. They would rather it is. And I mean, that's how Africa was colonized. For those Serum Kumazia who have read the history of this world, why was Africa colonized? These guys didn't colonize it because they wanted to help us develop. No, they were coming here to grab from some very natives, primitive natives who are on God, but they are busy peeing on it. They don't know its value, and so on. So that's the confusion in Congo, and eventually that country will break up.
And just little information, Oscar. I think what
in a minute, yes.
I think the unfortunate bit for Congo is that it is surrounded by very weak people. That the leaderships, there's a government missing in Kinshasa, but also the governments around are all interested in just going in and stealing the resources, all the way from South Africa to us in the region. They are weak people.
Well, depending on how you define weakness.
They're weak. They don't have the metals. They're weak. They're workers.
Lydia,